back to your channel for the automotive DIY enthusiast. On today's video, we're going to start the series on building your own home DIY professional results paint booth. Now I'm going to tell you, this paint booth, it worked good. It didn't work as good as I hoped, but there were several revisions that I did while making the booth. So one important note is that you're going to want to stick around to the end so you can see all of the revisions that I made all the way throughout the building process. Just like any project you're doing at home, you will find ways as you are moving through the project to make improvements, and that's what I've done. So what I want to do is I want to take just a few minutes to discuss the initial design. Now, when I initially designed this on paper, I had planned on it being a negative pressure air booth, which would be very similar to what you would have in a professional shop. So that means the air is being pulled out of the booth through some type of exhaust fan, okay? Now what you find, say for example, with inflatable paint booths is a positive airflow booth, okay? And what that does is the air is pushing in the booth and then pushing it out of some type of opening where it's not being forcefully drawn, it's being pushed. So my initial plan was to go with a negative air pressure paint booth. Now that thought, the reason why is because pulling the air out forcefully is much more efficient than pushing it out. But the downside to that is when you've got a booth that is not completely sealed up perfectly, when you are sucking, the booth becomes a vacuum. It could potentially pull insects and other things into the booth. So you'll notice as I am building this booth, I made some changes. I ended up actually, after the booth was completely finished, I switched it up and I went ahead and switched it to a positive airflow booth. That way that would keep the booth pressurized, and that would push out any potential foreign objects from getting in the booth. Now that also has its drawbacks as well. And one other thing that I found is that with a negative flow air booth, since I was using a tarp as my floor, that created lift. Just like an airplane wing creating lift. Once you have airflow moving across that surface, it starts pulling up. So by doing that, that also would have caused a problem. So in my opinion, a negative airflow booth is still better, but you really need to have a good, solid, level, flat surface to set it up on, say a concrete driveway or something like that, and I could have sealed the floor a little bit better and not had the problem with any kind of lift of the tarp. So there's that. I just want to make sure you guys are aware of the two differences and how they perform differently. And just make sure, and what I'll do throughout this video is I'll give some key tips and things that I changed along the way as I help kind of narrate through some of the changes as we go through building this booth. But at the end of the day, guys, the car turned out fantastic. The booth didn't work as good as I hoped, but it still worked great. It's a whole lot better than painting in here. Is it better than an inflatable paint booth? As far as being able to work in a controlled environment and having good lighting and being able to work when the weather is not beneficial to work in, yes, it's better. Is it as clean as an inflatable paint booth? No. So that's kind of what I want to talk about, is a little bit of a comparison between the two, because I've used both. I've also painted in here before too, and which this is fine. It's just, I'll be honest with you guys, I can get a really clean paint job right in here, but it's a pain in the butt to set it up in here, and then the airflow is not going to be the best. So we'll kind of talk through all that through the video, and hopefully you enjoy this whole video. I know this is going to be at least 2 videos as I'm starting the editing process right now. Here we go. Alright guys, we're just now getting the layout and the design started. What we're working on right now is the 2 back walls. They're all 8 foot by 8 foot sections. Now on this materials list, you're going to see where you've got 2 2x4 by 8s. That's your top and bottom boards. So that's going to be my top up here. and there's my bottom board. Okay, so top plate, bottom plate. You've got your 92 5/8 boards. You've got 4 of those. Okay, so 4 92 5/8, and those are going to go on the ends and your 2 middle ones. Now on your 92 5/8 board, you're going to measure from the outside of each end to 26.5 inches from each end. So from here to here is 26.5 on center. And I've screwed all this together. You can nail it, that's up to you. I screwed it for that way if I ever want to unscrew it, or it also gives a little bit more strength if you're screwing it versus nailing it. And now the boards I've got here is where your air intake filters are going to be. Okay, I don't even have these attached yet, but what you've got here is 2 2x4 by 20 inch pieces that are pre-cut. That's this one and this one. And you've got 2 2x4 by 41.5 here and here. So that gives a perfect opening for a framed 20 by 20 air intake filter. Now all you need to do with your 20-inch boards is you're going to put that right on the center. So of course the center of that is at exactly 48 inches. Okay, you're going to come down, put that right in between your two 20 inches. Don't overcomplicate it. So you don't have to really do any more measuring other than just make sure you get your 20-inch board right on center. Everything else, if you have these already all cut, will fall right into place. Now what I'm doing as an extra step, it's not something you have to do, but I like going ahead and doing it just a little bit extra. You ask my wife that, she says I'm really good at being extra. Yeah, she's over there laughing at me. She's over there running the saw right now. So we've got 2x2 boards, and what we're doing with those, we're going to picture frame this with 2x2s. That way they'll be recessed. Angel, thank you. So we're going to have 8 of those cut at 20 inch, and then 8 of them that will go in the middle part that will be cut at 17 inches. So that'll give you a perfect picture frame to have a recess to put your 20 by 20 air intake filters. Now guys, I'm going to go ahead and take you over here and show you these air intake filters. These come from the paint shop. I'm sure you can order them online. They're not very expensive, but they're sticky. This is a whole case of them. It's more than I need. But what these are is this one side, which is the intake side, so this will be the outside of the building. This is where it will catch any particulates coming in, so we'll get good clean air, and then the air will flow through this side. So these will rest right inside of those picture frames. Okay guys, so we have the back 2 walls built. Those all have the intake air filters in them. Now what I've got here is the side walls, and this booth is modular, which means you can make this any length you want. So of course it's 2 8-foot sections wide. If you wanted to, you could do 1 8-foot section wide depending on what you need to paint, but typically for a car you at least want to have 16-foot wide. On here, as you can see, I've got 8 of these. These are the side walls, which means 4 per side, so the total length of this paint booth for the car will be 32 feet. Each one of these are made identically, and each one of these are made to hold a standard Lasco 20-inch box fan, and that's what all these 2x2s are down here for. And we'll get more of that later. But what I've done to build these, my wife and I, we put this together in about an hour, actually a little less than an hour. We got after it, but everything was designed and planned prior, so we was able to get to it really quick. Now the measurements for this is that you've got 2 8-foot sections, top and bottom, just like the back walls. You've got 92 5/8, 4 of those. Now I went ahead and made these easily because I'm going to use zip wall for my entrance, but that worked out perfect where I've got 36 inches from here to here. Now on center from that is going to take you from the edge of the board to 38.5, and from the other edge of the board to fit for your box fan is from the edge of the board to 23 inches. These can vary just a little bit. What I done with these is I set the box fan in there and I raise this up just a little bit so I can reach in there and control the fan from the top just to control it to kind of so I can tweak the booth airflow if needed, because all that will be done from the outside. You will not be able to reach the fan from the inside of the booth once the fan is in and the walls are up. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get busy and build the 2 front walls, and I'll get back with you once we have those built, and I'll show you how we did the 2 front walls. That took us all of about 10 minutes to get those put together real quick. For our front opening, this is going to give us a 9-foot opening, so each one of these small wall sections that are going to be on the front are 3.5 foot wide, so 2 3.5 foot wide pieces per wall section, and then 2 92 5/8 studs, and that'll give us a 9-foot opening in between to bring the car in and out. My wife and I, we've been knocking them out. I'm going to tell you, once you get your system down pat, you can knock these things out. Like I said before, we built 8 of these sidewall sections in a matter of less than an hour. You know, the way I designed this is that it is easy to put together with minimal cutting. So to put the plastic on, I'm going to give you a tip. For one, it takes 2 people. I promise you, you need to do it with 2 people. What we do is we border the outside edge of the plastic and start on one side and go to the next, and that way you have a good reinforced plastic edge that will hold all of the staples in. Then what we do on the sides is we take one more roll of duct tape, wrap it around the side, and also staple it there. That gives some added rigidity, and you can see where we've got just a few in the middle. And then this section right here is where the fan's going to go. Now this will be the inside of the booth. The fan will be blowing through right here. This will get stuck right there once the hole gets cut out. And this is 20 by 20. You can pick these up at your paint store, and these are actual paint booth exhaust filters. We'll cut this out. We'll take one more border of tape right here, the size, just to give some rigidity to the plastic, and then the fan will be on the other side, and we'll have a perfect area in each one of these sections for a 20 by 20 fan to sit in, and then we can regulate how much airflow we have by adjusting each one of the 8 fans, whether they need to be on low, medium, or high. And you can adjust the fan from the outside of the booth. Pretty simple, guys. Tried to make it easy. I think once we got our system down pat, it took my wife and I about 10 minutes to get the plastic on. It's going to take you a little longer the first couple you do, but once you get your system down, you can knock it out. So I wanted to get it out here and test it to make sure my zipper wall would work as I intended it. I wasn't sure if I was going to need 2 zippers or 1. I really wanted to go with the 1, but I'm a big guy and I want to make sure that I can fit through there. And yes, I can fit just fine. So all we've done is, once that any of the section you choose to be your entry, that 3-foot wide opening right there, you put your zipper wall on it. It's got really good adhesive on the back, and then you unzip it and then just cut your plastic right down the middle of the zipper. And I'll show you here. You'll be able to get in and out. Kind of like getting in and out of a tent. Yes, I can fit through there without putting too much pressure on the plastic. Oh, and by the way, there's the tires. 245 4018s and 295 3518 Mickey Thompsons. Alright guys, it's about time to wrap this video up. As you can see, we've got everything pre-assembled and ready to go. So on the next video, what we're going to do is get everything assembled and tested. So you'll want to stick around for that video. And one more thing that I would change is I would actually take white exterior house paint and put in my cheap sprayer. Matter of fact, it's right over there. I think I bought that thing from Harbor Freight a few years ago. It actually works really, really good for painting house or walls or anything like that. I just bought the cheapest exterior white paint that I could get and paint the outside of that plastic, not the inside but the outside. For one, that would do a lot for reflecting the light on the inside of the booth, and also it would dissipate some of the heat generated from the sun, creating that greenhouse effect inside that booth. So a couple really important tips that I'm going to modify this booth that I've already built for the next one. So hey guys, stick around for the next video and we'll get this thing put together and we'll get it tested. I'll see you on that one.